Hey, what's up everyone and welcome to Daily Code Buffer. In this video, we are going to see how to upload and download a file using Spring Boot. So we are going to create a REST API that will allow us to upload a file and that particular file will save to database. So we are going to use the MySQL database for this particular example, and we are going to save that particular file as a blob format in the MySQL. And we will also create an API to download that particular file when we hit that particular API. So we are going to create two APIs, one to upload a file and one to download a file. The same implementation you can use for all sorts of file, and you can mix and match with the other data as well. Ideally, when you are uploading a file from the UI application, you will be sending in a form data. So we are going to collect that particular form data and we are going to process that file. So without wasting any time, let's go to the computer and let's create the application. So here what I'll do, I'll just open the IntelliJ IDEA. And here I'll create the project from the IntelliJ IDEA. You can create the same project using the Spring Initializer as well. The same dependency you need to add. So let me just create a new project from here. Here I'll be selecting Spring Initializer. If you want, you can go to the browser and go to start.spring.io, and from here you can create the project. Let me go to the Spring Initializer over here, and this is the project I want to create. I'll just name as Spring Boot file upload. Okay, simple, but we'll be doing upload and download both. And I have added the location as well. My language is Java, type is Maven. I'll add the group as com.dailycodebuffer, and my package name I'll just keep it as file mngt, file management. Okay, and my project SDK is Java 11. Click on next. Now we can add the dependencies. I'll add the Lombok dependency. I'll add the web dependency. I'll add MySQL dependency, that is the MySQL driver, and I will also add the JPA dependency. So you can see that we have added 4 dependencies, that is the Lombok for creating our boilerplate code. The next is Spring Web to create the web application, MySQL driver to connect my Spring application to the MySQL database, and Spring Data JPA to act as a middleware to connect our application to the database. Now let's click on finish and create the project. Now here you can see that the project is created. Let me just close the unnecessary windows. Now this is your project. Now let's add all the configurations. The first configuration that we have to do is, as we are going to upload and download the files, we are going to work with the multi-part files. So from the Spring Boot application, we need to enable that. So let's go ahead and enable that. For that, we will go to the src main resources and we'll go to the application.properties. And here we will add the properties to enable it. So what I'll do, I will just say spring.servlet.multipart.enabled equals to true. So your multipart is enabled. Now with this, we need to add some more configuration as well in our application to handle the size of a file. So let's add that as well. I'll just copy this detail and I will explain you. Okay, so these are the fields. You can see that it's spring.servlet.multipart.file size threshold equals to 2 KB. So this is the threshold after which the file will be start writing to the disk. And the next is max file size, that is spring.servlet.multipart max file size. So maximum file size is 200 MB and maximum request size I have added as a 215 MB. So these are the configurations for your multi-part file upload download, how we are going to handle it. Now, as we have also added Spring Data JPA and MySQL driver, we need to add the configuration to connect our Spring Boot application to the database as well. So let's add the properties for that as well. So this is the properties for that. You can see that I've added spring.datasource.url, JDBC MySQL localhost 3306. This is where my MySQL server is running. Now let me just add the schema as file underscore db Okay, so this is our schema. So this particular schema that we have to create, and the other usual URL stuff, that is the use SSL equals to false, server time zone equals to UTC, use legacy date time, code equals to false, all those stuffs. I'll add this code's link of GitHub in the description below, so you can check this out. You can directly copy this. And the username and password for my database, that is root and root, I have added that. And I have added the dialect as well. And you need to make sure that if you're using MySQL, you add the dialect as MySQL InnoDB dialect. Okay. And Spring Data JPA Hibernate DDL auto equals to update. So whenever there is a modification in our entities, it will get reflected in our database. So that's the configuration. Let me just create this schema. I'll go to the MySQL Workbench. If you have not installed MySQL or MySQL Workbench, you can go ahead and install that. If you just search with the MySQL Workbench and MySQL Server, you will get the first link and you can download it. It's very easy. So I will just logged in to my server with my credentials, and here I'll just create new schema, and I'll give the schema name, that is FileDB, and hit on apply. And my schema is created, FileDB. Let me go back. Now let's build the application. Let's create all the different classes and packages. So let me just go here. I need to go to the Java, and here I need to create some of the packages. So let me just create package controller. I need package service to create the services. I need package to create the entities. For the model, I think I need to rename it. Let me just refactor, rename, and this should be model. Okay, model, service, entity, controller, and I need one package as repository. Okay, now let's start creating the entities. So first let me just create the entity. I'll go here and I'll create the new Java class that says attachment, and for this attachment I'll just annotate with entity to make it as an entity, and I will annotate with @data for our data setters, and I will annotate with @noargs constructor as I need it. And now let's add the fields. So I'll just add private string ID, private string file name, private string file type, and private byte array of data. Okay, so these are my fields. Now for my ID, I need to annotate with @ID for our primary key, and then how this particular primary key will be generated. So for that, @generated value, and here I'll define the generator. Generator equals to UUID, and I'll create a generator. So this would be generic generator. It would be generic generator, and here the name would be UUID, and what would be the strategy? This will be in the codes. Okay, and the strategy would be UUID2. Okay, my ID is done. Now if you come here, for your data, that is the byte array, you need to store this data as a blob. So I will annotate with @lob. Okay, so all your data, whatever the file that you're going to upload, that will be stored as a byte array data in the blob. Okay, so directly the entire file will be stored in your database, and you can fetch the data as well from that directly. Now there is another approach as well, where you will store the file in the directory, and the path of that directory you will store in the database. That is also the valid approach. That is also the widely used approach. Now with the cloud in picture, you can upload the file in the cloud as well, and the link for that particular cloud, wherever you have stored the file, that link also you can save in the database. That is also approach you can follow. So that's what we have done here. We will be saving in the database for now. I'll create one constructor which will take all these 3 fields, 1, 2 and 3 without id. Okay, so you can see that my entity is ready. Now based on this entity, I can create the repository. So let me just go ahead and create the repository. In the repository package, I will generate the new class and I'll say attachment repository, and this will be the interface, and this extends JPA repository, and it's of type attachment and the ID is of type string, and I'll annotate with @repository. Cool, right? Your repository is ready, your entity is ready. Now let's create a model with which you will be sending the data and receiving the data. So let me just create a model that says response data, and I'll annotate with @data @noargs constructor @allargs constructor, and here I'll add fields. I'll just define private string, file name, private string, download URL, private string, file type, and private long, file size. Cool, right? So you can see that your model is also ready. Now what you have to do is your controller, service and repository is also already created. So your controller and service. So let me just create the service interface and service class. So I'll go to the service, and here I'll just define new class that will be the interface. So I'll just define attachment service, and let me just define the implementation for this service as well. Attachment service IMPL, and this will implements attachment service, and this is your service, so we'll annotate with service. Cool, right? So your service and your service interface both are created. Now let's go ahead and create the controller. So I'll go to the controller package and let's create the controller Java class attachment controller, and I'll annotate this with @REST controller to make it as a REST API controller. Cool, you can see that all the classes are created. Now in my controller, what I need is I need the object of the service. So let me just create the reference for that. Private attachment service, and I'll just create the constructor. Okay, and here I need to create a method which uploads the file and then downloads the file. So let's do that. I'll just create one method, and I'll just say public, which will return response data which we created, and I'll just name as a upload file, and this will be post mapping with slash upload as the URL. And here what I will be taking is I will be taking the request param from the form. Okay, so what would the request param? Request param would be file, and this would be the multi-part file, and I'll just give the name as a file. Okay, so I am injecting multi-part file which I am uploading from the form. I'm submitting from the form to my method. Okay, now this particular file, whatever I'm getting, that I need to convert it to byte array, and I can directly save to the database. Now here what I'll do, I'll just say attachment equals to null. I'll just defining here, and let me just do attachment equals to attachment service dot save attachment. I'm creating one method and I'm passing file. Okay, this method is still not created, so we need to create this method. So let me just go ahead and create this. Create method, save attachment in attachment service. Let's do that. You can see that the method is created. Now I need to implement this method. So let me go here. Let me go to the attachment service IMPL and let's implement this method. Now in the attachment service IMPL, here I will be doing the code to save the file to the database. So here I'll need the reference of the repository. So let me just create that. I'll create private attachment repository, an object for that attachment repository, and this will again need the constructor to bind in. Okay, so this is a constructor and this is injected and it's assigned back. Cool, right? Now let's implement this method. I have got the file here. Now what I'll do, I'll just get the file name from here. So I'll just define string file name equals to string utils dot clean path, and I'll just get the clean path from file dot get original file name. Let me just add the try catch block and I'll get the exception here. Here what I'll do, if here you can do all sort of validation like what's the size and the file name is correct or not, all the type of exceptions or all the type of validations that you can handle. And if there is any exception, you can throw the exception and you can handle the exception. You can pass on the proper exception message, error message to the client. So here what I'm checking is file name dot contains any invalid character. If so, throw new exception that says file name contains invalid path sequence. Okay, after if I'll just create the object of attachment equals to new attachment, and within this I'll pass file name, then I'll pass file dot get content type, and then I'll pass file dot get data, get bytes. Okay, once you get the attachment, we'll do return attachment repository dot save attachment. Simple, right? And here if there is any error exception, you can throw back the exception, throw new exception could not save file, add exception to method signature. Yes. Okay, so here is also added and it is also added in the service, and we can handle the same in the controller. Okay, here we can do try catch as well and handle it. And now here what we can do is, you can see at this particular point your attachment is saved in the database. Okay, now this attachment, from this particular attachment object, what you can do is you can directly send it or you can create the response data. Now what we have added in the response data is file name, download URL, file type and file size. So all this information we can get directly, but to create a download URL we need to do some code, and when you click on the download URL, that particular file which is already saved in the database, that needs to get downloaded. So we need to build this URL, and whatever the URL that we are going to build, the same we need to create a method to download it as well. Okay, so let's do that. So let me just create download URL equals to blank. Now what I need download URL equals to, I need to get the current context path. Okay, so whatever my application is running, that I need, so I can get that from the servlet URI components builder dot from current context path. From here we will get the current context path, and then from here I can add path, that after the path whatever it is, that is localhost 8080 / whatever, then if I add the another path, that is the download, then dot path, if I add attachment dot get id, whatever the id it is, and then dot to URI string. Cool. So this is the entire URL we created. That is the your current context path slash download slash the ID that you want for a particular, okay, which particular ID you want to download it. So that's what we have created, the download URL. Now let's create the object of it and let's send it. So here we will just create return new response data, and in this response data what I need attachment dot get file name, then I need download URL, then I need file.get content type, then I need file.get size. Cool, right? Your response data is created. So we will get a entire object which will contain the file name, what was the file name, what was the URL to download that particular file, the content type and the size as well. Now whatever the URL that we have created here, for that we need to create the API to download as well. So let's go ahead and do that also. So here what I'll do, I'll create one more method that says public response entity. This is the return type, and the return type would be of resource, and this resource would be from the org.springframework.core.io. okay, and I'll just say download file, and this will be get mapping, okay, and it will be slash download slash file ID. So that's the path variable that we are going to pass. So we need to inject the path variable as well. So I'm just injecting path variable and string file ID. Cool, right? It's simple. Now here we need to build it. So what we will do here, I'll just say this is the attachment equals to null, and we need the entire attachment. So I'll just say attachment equals to attachment service dot get attachment, and here in the get attachment I'll just pass the file ID, or you can say attachment ID. Okay, now let's create this method. This method is not available, so let's create this method in the attachment service. Okay, now we need to implement this method as well. So let's go to the attachment service IMPL and let's implement the method. Implement methods. Okay, now this is the method. Now this get attachment is very simple. What we will do, we'll just do return attachment service, attachment repository dot find by ID, find by ID based on the file ID dot or else throw, we will throw new exception file not found with ID file ID, and I'll just add exception to the method signature. Yes, hope so you are able to see this. You can see this is a simple method get attachment where we are getting the file ID, and from the attachment repository we are doing find by ID with the particular ID that we got, because that's the primary key. And if we didn't get the primary key, then we are doing or else throw the exception file not found. Now let's go back to the controller, and here also you can see now we are getting the error, so we need to add exception to the method signature. That's fine, and you can add the try catch block as well. Now once you get the attachment object, what you can do, you need to create the response entity, and we need to add some header information so browser can know what to do with this particular request. So we'll just define return response entity dot okay dot content type. Okay, what is the content type? Content type is media type dot parse media type. Okay, let me just media type dot parse media type, and I'll just do attachments dot get file type. Okay, dot we need to add the headers. So in the header I'll define http header dot content disposition, and here I'll just define attachment and file name equals to double quotes plus attachment dot get file name plus backslash. Okay, dot body. Now as we need to pass it in a resource and my data is in the byte array, so I'll just define byte array resource. What is the resource? Attachment dot get data. Cool, right? This makes sense. You can see that it's simple. What we did in the response entity, what we are going is we are just defining the content type and the header information. Content type is whatever the content type of the file itself, and the header information we defined as a content disposition. So whatever the content is, those content will be disposed, it will be downloaded. And it would be the file name. Whatever the file name we have added, that particular file name will be downloaded. As that particular file name, it will be downloaded, and we returned as a byte array resource, and the data would be whatever the attachment dot get data. Now what we will do, we will just start our application and we will see this. So let me just start the server. I'll just enable the annotation processor. Okay, now you can see that my server is started. Now we will go ahead and check the database. We'll just refresh all. We'll go to our database, that is the file DB, and you can see that our table is created and there is no data. Okay, let's go back, and for this let's open the Postman to test this API. Okay, in this Postman, let me just open the new request, and this will be the post request, and here I'll just define http localhost :8080/upload, and this will be the post request, and we need to go to the body, and this will be the form data, and here key would be file, and here you need to change to file because we are uploading a file. So let's attach the file, and what I'll do, I'll just go to the pictures and let me just upload this one. Okay, and when I hit on send, you can see that I got the request back. That is the file size, what was the file type, what was the download URL, and what was the file name, all the things. Now if we go to the database and if we hit the query again, you can see that the record is there, and you can see the data, this is in the blob format. Okay, now if you get this URL, okay, and if you go to the browser and if you hit this URL, you can see that your file is downloaded, and if you open this, this is the file that we have uploaded. You can see that we just uploaded the file which saved to the database, and that particular file was downloaded with the download URL as well. Now you can do the same thing with the multiple file as well. The only thing is you need to loop through the file, and when you take the input here, instead of taking just the multi-part file, you need to take the array of multi-part file. That's it. That will be for your multiple files. Now the other thing you can do is, if you want this entire byte format data which is saved in the database into base 64, then you can convert this entire byte array to base 64 and you can pass the data back as well. So that's what I wanted to share. Everyone was asking about this tutorial, how to upload the file and download the file from the Spring Boot with the help of the REST APIs. So this is what you will do, and when you are creating the form in any of the UI application, you will directly submit the form itself and you will pass the data as the form data. Okay, you will be passing the data as the request parameter, not the body. So if you have doubts regarding any of the things that we have covered, then do let me know in the comment section below. If you like this tutorial, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for the upcoming videos. You can also join this channel by clicking the join button below, and you can support the channel as well. So that's been it. I will see you in the next video. Till then, happy coding. Bye bye.